So we've got our first pests starting to show up. If you can see that little guy there, and a couple there. Those are some potato beetles. We've got a good number of them in here. I'm gonna come through and crush as many as I can with my hands. They pretty much showed up overnight. They weren't here, and then all of a sudden, they're everywhere. So we're gonna take care of those. I'm gonna crush as many by hand as I can. I'll just go down the 2 rows, destroy every one that I can that didn't fly away, get rid of them. While I'm going through, I'll probably also cut off some of these flowers because we've got a bunch of potatoes that are flowering, and potato flowers don't really do anything for you. You can get potato seeds, but most people don't grow them that way. So they just take energy from the plant, so we'll rip those off. What we're gonna do is we're going to apply some Captain Jack's Dead Bug to the potato plants. Hopefully that will get rid of any of these that I missed by hand. And then just to be on the safe side, it has been raining a lot. We have a bit of a dry day today, at least afternoon. So I'm gonna apply some BT to the greens just to make sure that no moths have come by and started. We normally would start spraying BT once every couple weeks, just as a preventative. It really does maintain the caterpillars. So we'll do that. And then for the corn, they're starting to pop up. They're a couple inches tall, so we're gonna apply a side dressing of blood meal to all the rows of corn. That's just an organic blood meal, like pure nitrogen basically. And what we'll do is we'll go down between the rows and we'll put the corn in there, or the blood meal in there, and then that will, fertilize the corn as it grows. As you can see, the corn is starting to come up pretty well. I said it's a couple inches tall, all of them. They took a long time to pop up, but they have now started to pop up. And I don't know if you can see that moth flying around, but that's a cabbage moth most likely, so I definitely want to get rid of that guy. These little jerks. But yeah, so that's on the agenda for the garden today. Everything else is doing well. Like I said, it's been raining a lot lately, so the plants are doing all right. You can see it was dry before it rained a lot, and some of the leaves took a little bit of a beating from the heat and the rain, or from the dryness, but that's not a big deal. They'll come back. I do see a little bit of chewing on this leaf. Let's see if we see anything under here. I don't see anything under here, so this is probably a slug or a snail that came by and got this leaf, most likely. Yeah, there's a little slime on the bottom of the leaf there, so I'm gonna guess that was a slug. I haven't seen many slugs, so I'm happy about that, but I do expect to see some at some point. Cucumbers here. Oh no, these are summer squashes. Sorry, summer squash is coming up okay. And this is a cucumber. They're looking all right. The beans are still coming in nicely. The rows have started to really come up here, which is nice. These are all bush beans, so we're just gonna kind of let them grow. I was expecting these to come in a little bit thinner than they did. We didn't have such a great success rate or germination rate with the last couple packets of seeds, so I just assumed that because these were 2 years old, I would get the same sort of poor germination rate, but looks like we're getting really good germination rates here, so I'm gonna probably have to thin some of these out at some point. We'll let them go up a little bit more, make sure no bugs get them, see how that goes first. So yeah, so that's the agenda today. We're gonna do that. Like I said in the last video, I haven't seen any moth worm pressure at all on these greens. Everything has been growing great. We've been harvesting kale, and we harvested some collards this week and made the collards, and boy, they were delicious. Look, you can see that beetle right there. So anywhere there's a potato, these beetles are finding it. We've definitely got to kill all those guys. But yeah, the kale and the collards are doing just amazing. The collards we've cut back a little bit. Some of these leaves have grown in significantly just since we cut them a couple days ago. But the collards were absolutely delicious. Probably the best collards I've ever had. Now the ham and the bacon and the collards definitely makes that happen. But still delicious. They held up well to cooking. They were great. I hadn't picked this guy out. I need to do that today too. Just cut this plant out. It has totally gone to seed, so we're not going to get anything out of this. The plant probably tastes terrible at this point. And then this one is growing into, oh, this looks more like a broccoli almost. That's interesting. See how that's growing in there? So I didn't plant any broccoli, but interesting enough, this green looks kind of like a broccoli when it shoots its flowers out. I mean, I guess that does make sense. They're all brassica families, right? Same thing with the turnips and the cabbages. They're all looking great. Once again, we're just going to spray those as a preventative, not because there's any real issue. The only issue we're coming across right now is these potato beetles. This happens though, and you know, we'll just kill them and hopefully maintain it. Potato beetles don't normally destroy your whole crop. They'll just, you know, stress the plant a bit. So if we can kill them, or at least kill enough of them so that they don't stress the plants as much, then we should be okay. So yeah, I'm gonna get to work on that. I'll check back in a little bit and show you, you know, how things are going. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is I'm just gonna show you what I'm gonna do with these beetles. If you don't wanna see a beetle die, I would suggest you just tune away for a few seconds, but there's some beetles on this leaf right here on the bottom side of it. So we're gonna pull this guy out, get him in our fingers and just crush him and then drop him. We'll just do that with every beetle we find in this row. So you can see there's more for sure. There's some right there. There's gonna be more everywhere in here. There's another one up there. I can see, you might not be able to make it out very well. See if I can't get the zoom to go for you. Yeah, there you go. See that one right there in the middle of the screen. There's two more there. So yeah, we're just gonna go through and we're gonna kill every one of these beetles that we can find in the same fashion. Just squish them and drop them on the ground. We'll let their, you know, corpses, I guess is the best way to describe it, you know, disintegrate back into the ground and add fertilizer to the garden. So not letting it go to waste, that's for sure. And then we'll come through and we'll spray some Captain Jacks over top of these plants just to try and get anything that might show up. Okay, so I've killed, I don't know, well over 150 beetles at this point, and I still keep missing them. As you can see, I just missed one right there. Here's one, here's two in the midst of mating. There's lots and lots of them in here. That infestation took off much faster than I expected. And every time I come back through, I find more. Oh, like that guy just dropped down to the ground. So sometimes they'll do that. They'll kamikaze down all the way to the bottom. And you gotta kind of find them. So like this one's way down here. Pick them up, squish them, rub it off. I've been using gloves, but just while I was gonna record here, I figured I'd put on or take off my gloves. And of course, now I'm finding lots and lots of these beetles just because I'm looking again. There is definitely a lot of these guys in here. As I mentioned, well over 150 already that I've squished just in the last few minutes. So 2 observations that I've found is that they seem to enjoy the flowers more than anything else. So what I've noticed, and I don't know if this is just coincidence or if it's a real, you know, thing, but any plant that seemed to have flower buds like these guys here tended to be much more infested than ones that didn't have flower buds. I don't know if they just like to eat the flower buds more or if the flower buds actually attract them or what the deal is, but I think that's a good enough reason all by itself just to keep the flowers plucked off your potatoes. I've always heard to pluck them off just so that, you know, the energy goes into root creation and not into flowers, but this seems to be another, you know, example of where potato flowers are both not needed and in this case could be detrimental, because see, you'll end up with these guys. And so just squish them and throw them away. All right, one other thing I've noticed is, one other thing to mention here, it's outside of the flowers being somewhat of an attractant to these guys, is that their eggs are very, very visible. So that is a lucky break for us, right? Because if we're trying to get rid of them, it's much easier to find them. This is a small batch that you can see here, but it's underneath the leaf. So you will have to go under the leaves to find them, but they are very, very visible. As you can see, they're bright orange or yellow compared to the leaf color, which is green. And they're kind of sticky. So what I've been doing with a gloved hand, I don't have my gloves on right now, is just kind of taking them off, and then I'll just squish them into the dirt and then step on that area. I don't know if that's going to definitely kill them all, but I think it's probably going to do the job. Next, what we're going to do, once I go through this and make sure I have no more flower buds left and there's no more visible beetles that I can find at least, is I'll spray this with the bug killer. So, and hopefully that will manage this infestation for a little while. These beetles tend to come in waves throughout the season, so it's a good idea once you find them to, you know, take care of them as best as possible. And then you probably won't have an issue for a little while again. And then for some reason, I don't know exactly what happens, but as you can see, there's yet another one, and I've already gone over this area twice. You know, for whatever reason, they just kind of show up again. I don't know exactly what's going on there. You know, I don't think, being that these are so big, that there was you know, any eggs that were here, because these guys are way bigger than, you know, larval size. And I don't think they grow that fast. Maybe they do, I don't know. But yeah, you just got to kind of keep up with it. So if you find these guys, this is my, you know, process to killing them and getting rid of them, and really just maintaining them. If there's a couple, you know, you can't get every pest that's out here. It's not possible. But your goal is to try and keep managed the number, right? So just manage the number that's out here. And if you miss a couple, well, you miss a couple. It's just kind of the way it is. You're never going to have a 100% success rate. But you do want to try and limit the damage that they can do. And really the way that we limit that is we take care of as many adults as possible so they can't lay any eggs. And then we take care of their food source, which in this case really does seem to be the flower pods. And maybe that's something that I should have paid better attention to, was, you know, get rid of the flower pods earlier. But as I mentioned, though, it had been raining, and you can see they're mating in the plants here. And then once they start mating, they leave eggs everywhere. Yeah, so by not maintaining these flower pods, I feel like I definitely have had a problem there. So it's probably a good idea to keep the flower pods maintained. Okay, well, I'm gonna get back to it. Here's another mating pair that I missed. Get these guys taken care of. Squish that one. And then get some spray on these plants to try and knock out anything that I may have missed, which, as you can see from just talking as I'm walking through the potato plants here, you know, there's lots that I've missed. And it is mid-June, and this is our first, you know, pest issue this year. So, you know, in the grand scheme of things, not terrible. We could have had much worse by this point. You know, the tomatoes are looking good. The greens are still looking good. Even the potatoes, you know, with the pressure of these beetles, because we're catching it somewhat early here, I don't believe it should be too detrimental to the plants. We should be able to maintain some semblance of normalcy with these plants. But yeah, this guy's got to go. Squish him, throw him on the ground. All right, I'm gonna get here. I think I've got most of these now. I've got most of the flowers picked off, or at least the vast majority of the flower buds picked off. So we're just gonna take these last couple here, pluck them off, and then throw some spray on these guys. Gonna spray down to hopefully, you know, get anything that I may have missed. Okay, so those potatoes are completely taken care of. I don't see any more potato beetles in there, and I've removed all the flower buds that I can find, and I've given it a good spray, side, top, and, you know, tried to get underneath the leaves of the Captain Jacks. So that's good. I think we should be okay there. I also walked through the tomatoes because, remember, potatoes and tomatoes, and peppers for that matter, are very closely related. So I wanted to make sure that none of those pests on the potato plants had migrated their way over to the tomatoes. I didn't see a single thing in the tomatoes. The tomatoes all look great, and there doesn't seem to be any pest pressure over there yet. So, you know, all these pests will occasionally cross into different plants that they want to eat, but they have preferred plants. So these beetles predominantly want to eat my potatoes. So with that, you know, being said, it does make it a little easier for us to try and focus our efforts on one or two different crops that these things are going to attack. So that's what I did. I just went ahead and took care of the potatoes that I could take care of. And you can see now, look, once again, you're never going to be 100% successful, because I just found 3 beetles that I missed. And I've gone through these rows six times at least already. You know, they hide under the leaves. They're what do you call it? The foliage is very thick here. So, you know, getting them all is difficult. I've gotten them at the vast majority though. When I came in here, you could see them everywhere. Now I have to look really hard to find one. So I think that was a successful attempt at controlling these guys. Once again, we're not going to ever be able to get every single one. The goal is to get most of the ones like this that are breeding. You want to get rid of those breeders. Oh yeah, look, that's gross. That's eggs from inside the beetle. Wipe that off. Yuck. I'm gonna cut this guy out, give him to the birds, to the chickens, just because he's gone completely to seed. So I think the chickens will enjoy that. And then, yeah, we're just gonna kind of go through. The next thing that I'm gonna do here is spray some BT. So now BT is something that is organic certified, right? It's a bacteria, if I remember right, that lives in soil naturally, and it works directly on caterpillars. So your cabbage moths and stuff like that will be affected by this. Now, if you had something like milkweed that you were planting out to attract monarchs, you do not want to use milkweed BT on that, right? Because you will kill the cabbage moth, sorry, not the cabbage moth, but the worms of the monarch. So don't do that. And I usually don't like to harvest until 2 or 3 days after applying this, even though supposedly it's safe for same day harvest. I just personally don't like to do that. So what I'm gonna do today is tonight we're gonna have some kale with eggs for dinner. So we're gonna cut some of this kale. So I'm not gonna spray that. I'll spray these guys. And basically you just wanna go over the top and then go down each side of the row and spray the undersides of the leaves as you go. It's a pretty straightforward process. What happens is when the caterpillar eats the leaves, so say a caterpillar hatches tomorrow and starts eating the leaves, the BT on the leaves will kill the caterpillar. One thing to note though is that BT does not stick around for a long time. It is a natural substance that sits on the leaves. So if you have a lot of heavy rain, the BT will not be effective, right? You'll have to reapply it. I don't mind doing that. I feel like BT works really, really well. And it's, you know, like I said before, it's an organic, natural substance that it just comes from soil. So because of that, I'm okay applying this a few times a year. The chemical pesticides, I don't like to apply too much. Oh man, I shouldn't have just applied that to those. Oh well. I wasn't supposed to apply it to those curly leaf kales. I'll just have to make sure I pick from the outside of the row and the top. So yeah, so we just kind of go through, spray the sides so that you get some of the undersides of the leaves, and then just keep going. This is something that works really, really well. It always is very effective at maintaining your caterpillar, you know, populations in the garden, especially on greens. But you do have to apply it regularly. So that is the downside, is you got to get yourself in a pretty regular schedule and a habit of applying this stuff. So I'm going to stop right here because I don't want to get those guys. All right, so I'm going to do the turnips here. Not that I've seen anything on the turnips, but we'll spray it down just in case. I'm really not worried about those. That's mostly just food for the chickens. We'll spray these guys, even though I don't know that I'm even going to eat them. I'm not going to spray that one because we're going to pick that one today and give it to the chickens. Spray this guy. We'll probably harvest some more of this kale this week. Same thing with the collards. We harvested collards this week and they were delicious. So I don't want anything to start eating those. And once again, I haven't seen any bug damage on these plants. I just want to, this is more of a preventative. These, I still have no idea what is eating them. I cannot find it. I'm guessing it's slugs and snails, but I've only found 1 or 2 little snails on here, or little slugs on here. So I have no idea really what's eating these. And nothing seems to be bothering this Brussels sprouts yet. So I'm gonna just leave those guys alone. Once again, I try to not spray things unless it's necessary. I just do know that the caterpillars will show up quickly on these greens. So I try to keep ahead of it. Because once they're here, it's really difficult to keep them under control. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the BT application. Now the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna side dress the corn with this blood meal. And what we're gonna do with this blood meal is we're gonna just put it along the center of the rows. So I'm gonna put my gloves on. We'll go ahead and start from the left side here. We'll put a line there, a line there, a line there, and we'll do that all the way down. And that way, all of the plants, as they grow, their roots as they grow out, will run into that line of nitrogen that's out there. And with this, I do like to make sure I have a glove on, just because blood meal is kind of, you know, it's not going to hurt you or anything, but it is pure nitrogen, and it's probably not something you want right on your hands, at least regularly. So yeah, you just kind of sprinkle it down pretty close to the plants, and then we're just going to kind of rake it in. If you have a hoe, you can definitely use a hoe to do this. A hoe makes it much easier, of course, but just sprinkle it in like so, and then rub it in the ground. And this will pretty much instantaneously get washed into the ground, because it is a fine powder. So that fine powder will get washed in the next time it rains, and these plants will have that nitrogen very soon as an available resource. So you can see some of these are already starting to like get some tips that are burnt a little bit here. That's from the lack of rain when they were first coming up. Some of them over there are much more green, right? This is going to ensure that they have plenty of nitrogen to handle some of that adversity when they're growing, right? Because I'm not irrigating these plants. Corn's one of those things that really likes a lot of nitrogen. In the past, I've even used quick release grass fertilizer, right? Because grass fertilizer is even higher in nitrogen. It's like 30-0-0 or 35-0-0-0. Sorry, 0-0. So that works great too. I've used that many times. We have a bag somewhere still, I believe, of Scott's, you know, grass fertilizer. You just want to make sure it doesn't have any weed killer or anything in it, right? You just want plain, raw grass fertilizer, because once again, it's pure nitrogen, and that's really what corns thrive on, is just that nitrogen access. All right, I'm gonna finish this up and we'll check back in at what we've accomplished. All right, so as often happens, I did not have enough. So the bag is empty, but I didn't have enough to do all of them. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 furrows filled in with the blood meal, and I got 1, 2, 3 to go. So for right now, I'm just gonna leave it as is. Let these ones go, let the rain come tonight, get that stuff washed in, and in a couple days, I'll either pick up some more of that blood meal, or I'll see if I can find my bag of lawn fertilizer, because if I can find my bag of lawn fertilizer, I'll probably just use that here in this row. Be a good experiment, right? See, because these are all exactly the same type of seed, planted at exactly the same time, and probably in the exact same compost. So it'd be a good experiment to see, okay, with these 5 furrows here, and then these 3 furrows here, which one does better. The only part that wouldn't be a perfect experiment is the fact that these are on the edge, and corn on the edge of a crop or a square tend to do a little less good than the others. So that might be something that impacts it, but definitely like this row should perform the same as that row, given the same fertilizer. So I would see how that all comes out. Might be a good experiment. But I think that's gonna do it for today. I've got the jobs done that I wanted to get done. Got the potato bug problem addressed. Got some BT sprayed. Got some fertilizer put on the corn. Verified that everything else is looking good. Well, thanks for watching, coming along with me as I work in the garden. If you like this content, want to see how the garden turns out, want to see how we take care of our animals like this guy, as well as our chickens and our geese, and how we prepare for next year's animals, which will be some goats. Got the goose. Hey, are the geese hanging out there? Chickens up in the coop in the back there, building a new giant chicken coop. You can see I got the roof on it yesterday. That's coming together very nicely. If you'd like to follow along, see how these things all turn out this summer, see how we continue to build our, build up our land here, get crops going. Yeah, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Like this video. If you do subscribe, we appreciate it, and then click that little bell and you'll get notified every time that we post a new video, which we try to do once a week-ish. All right, well, thanks again for watching. We hope you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.